Hello YouTube, today we are going to do part 3 of the book of 5 rings. And on part 2 we were interrupted by the camera that somehow ran out of battery or something, it cut. So we are going to start where we were interrupted last time. And hopefully the sound is better this time too, last time it was a little bit sketchy. So, we were interrupted, if I am not mistaken, at the part where Musashi says, when you sacrifice your life, you must make fullest use of your weaponry. It is false not to do so, and to die with a weapon yet undrawn. So this is a message that is both appealing to the combative nature of men, meaning that giving up is never going to be the answer, it's always better to do something about your situation, and also can be applied to your ability to use resources to solve your problems. You can use that metaphor for weapons, meaning that if you're in a fight, you're going to use every single tool at your disposal to survive, but it's the same for lifting. Let's say you want to get bigger arms, and you try one method, and it doesn't work. A lot of people are just going to immediately assume that that's it, it's because their arms cannot grow anymore, where in reality, there are so many factors you could be changing. You could be changing your volume, your intensity, the overall tonnage, or you can just also change your approach, change exercises, angles, weighted stretch, all of that stuff. There are so many ways to approach bodybuilding and muscular development that in reality, you cannot run out of options. It's not possible. So there is always a way. There is always a weapon that you can draw to keep fighting. And it's interesting to see that already back in those days, men of old were sensing a certain lack of willpower in younger men. I think it's always been that way because the older generation is nostalgic of their glory days, and therefore they assign more value and virtue to their generation. But I might also be stuck in that trap and that bias. I personally look around me and I see the same phenomena where everyone gives up. It's became cool to give up and to not try anymore. People who try are ridiculed, but at the end of the day, those are the people who make it. Feeling sorry about yourself and whining does nothing for you, and it's a cycle of self-destruction because it's addictive. That's why there are so many people who have a victim mentality, is because being a victim is comfortable because it's never your fault. So whatever happens, you're just a victim. You are a victim of your genetics, you're a victim of the environment, you're a victim of the context, the circumstances. It's not your fault. Musashi is against that. And the easy way out of this is just saying, fight until you die. If you engage life with that mentality, you will never give up because it's either dying or fighting. He also says, and I've spoke about that in the previous parts, from one thing, know 10,000 things. It's an important message. If you are presented with an information, absorbing that information is a good thing, but that's the basics. What you should be doing is also inferring more information from that one piece. You should be getting 4 new ideas from that one idea that's presented to you. And the other thing that's going to prevent you from becoming is becoming a fanboy. Fanboys are people who are presented with one idea and they just take that idea as gospel. You should have a judgment of the idea that could potentially lead to bigger and better things in the realm of spirituality, in the realm of muscular development. And it's the same for my videos. Don't take my videos at face value. Try and find something that can help you get better within them. He also says, the way of the warrior does not include other ways, such as Confucianism, Buddhism, certain traditions, artistic accomplishments, and dancing. But even these are the part of the way. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. Men must polish their particular way. One, Musashi accepts and respects the fact that different men are going to work different ways. It is critical that you do that. It is something that I strive to do on this channel. You might not be a bodybuilder, and find yourself on this channel, and I still want you to get some value from here. Because you can. Why? Because the way can be found in everything. Once you walk the way, you will start seeing the way everywhere. Just like an artist is going to see inspiration everywhere. This is why paintings, sculptures, films, all of these span a wide area of topics and themes. Is because you can draw inspiration from whatever. And for me, that's how I live bodybuilding. I find inspiration for my goal in bodybuilding everywhere. And it can become sort of an obsession, but typically people who do fairly well in their hobby of choice are obsessed with it. He continues, you should not have, and this is so important, you should not have a favorite weapon. To become over-familiar with one weapon is as much a fault as not knowing it sufficiently well. Okay, just with this, we have a ton of things to talk about. What could be a favorite weapon in the realm of bodybuilding, powerlifting? It's going to be a tendency that you have of preferring certain lifts, certain methods of training over others. What he says here is not you shouldn't be extremely proficient at one weapon. He says you shouldn't have a favorite weapon. Something that is favorite is something that is emotionally charged. It is detached from the realm of logic. It is not factual anymore. You are in love with that thing. That thing might not be good for you, but you cannot see that. And a lot of people get stuck in that mentality where they involve themselves so much in a particular lift, for example, that anyone who says that they don't like that lift, or even more just invalid, people who don't engage in that lift, who don't do it, suddenly become enemies. Why? Because they're attacking their way of life. He says to not become over-familiar with one weapon, because it is the same as to not knowing it enough. So between someone who only uses one sword in the realm of Bushido, the way of the warrior, and someone who uses 50 different weapons, but he's not a pro at any of them, they're both wrong. They both misunderstand the way. You need to strive towards becoming the best at everything, at every single aspect, at every single lift. I'm not talking about strength here. I'm talking about proficiency. The ability to do the lift comfortably without injury easily. And that is something that can be done if you research movement patterns, if you research specificity and synergy. And this is something I'm going to talk about a ton on this channel, how to become that. You should not copy others, but use weapons which you can handle properly. Going back to what I said before, never copy others, you're your own person. YouTube fitness is horrible for that. It teaches people to just be sheeps, be drones, and copy that guy. And then 6 months later, when you have a new idol, you're going to copy that guy. This is not going to be something that's going to help you with your self-improvement. It is going to damage your ability to make gains. You need to find your own way and walk it. If you keep switching from role model to role model, you're never going to go anywhere. You can draw inspiration from people, but don't become their servants. There is nothing more pathetic than that. On this channel, I will repeat it 1,000 times if I have to. You can get information from here, but that's it. It stops there. I am not your superior. I am not your boss. I am just a guy who might have more experience than you and who has started earlier. That's it. You are on your way and I'm just further because I started before you. So don't copy me and don't copy anyone. Make your own way and use the weapons you can handle properly. It is bad for commanders and troopers to have likes and dislikes. These are the things you must learn. Okay, this one is tougher because we all have likes and dislikes because we are humans, we are subjective beings. I sort of disagree with Musashi here, meaning that I think he has reached at this point in his life a state of enlightenment that is tough to grasp for people like me who are still young, and maybe for you too. Maybe he has transcended himself through efforts and work and spirituality, and he has no likes and dislikes. He just sees the world objectively. It's personally not my case. I have likes and dislikes. But one thing you can do before you reach that stage of enlightenment to make sure that you don't get easily led or deceived is accept the fact you have likes and dislikes. Having biases is fine. I have a ton of biases, but I recognize our biases. Never think that your biases are the right way. It's not the right way. It is your way. You need to have the ability to look at yourself out of your body and see yourself stand on the way, because it gives you an objective view of what you promote and your agenda. A lot of people push agendas that they're not even aware they have. This is terrible. Musashi says, there is timing in the whole life of the warrior, in his thriving and declining, in his harmony and discord. Tough to relate that to lifting. This is just a life observation. Timing is in everything. You might catch yourself sometimes have bad timing. You might have realized that some people in your life seem to consistently have bad timing, meaning that they inconvene others and themselves because they cannot walk to the right tempo. I think that understanding the rhythm of life, of your life, and matching it is a good way to be happy. But it's easier said than done, because I cannot explain to you how to do it, and he cannot either. It is especially important to know the background timing. Otherwise, your strategy will become uncertain. What is the background timing? In this case here, I think the background timing is what I explained before. It's the train of your life. It is the rhythm of the day. It is something that is not written on a piece of paper. Going to the grocery store or training at 5 p.m., those are, in my opinion, on the forefront of your life. But there is a timing in the background. It's the bigger picture that a lot of people fail to consider, because it takes the ability to project yourself conceptually. And as a bodybuilder, it is extremely important, especially if you're natural and you have already a good body. Why? Your gains are going to be made in that background timing, because it's going to take month and month and month. If you are so focused on the small picture of the training session you're doing right now and lose sight of the bigger picture, which is your training program and the goal behind it, you are going to make a lot of mistakes. If you practice day and night in the above school strategy, your spirit will naturally broaden. This is a topic Musashi talks about all the time, broadening your view. Anyone who's played sports, especially co-op sports where you're playing with other people, will know that feeling. When you start playing a sport, your field of vision is narrow. You have tunnel vision. I remember when I first started playing football and I was assigned to mark a guy, or I had my zone, that's all I could see. I saw my zone or I saw my guy. I was a cornerback. One-on-one for me was, I was looking at that guy and sometimes at the ball. Sometimes. But most of the time when I think back about my memories of football, it's like a black on both sides and a guy. That's it. I didn't have a broad field of vision, and this is why I was not a good football player, because I always had that narrow vision of what I had to do. So if the guy caught a pass, he was getting tackled. But the number of times I got caught with a reverse where I was supposed to cover for it, too many to count. I just couldn't do it because I didn't have the broad field of vision. But it got better the more I practiced. With basketball, I started playing basketball, I already had a broad field of vision. I already had that ability to lift my head that's so important for point guards. Beginners who play basketball, they play like this. And even if they manage to get a good dribble and they can look up, they're so focused on the person marking them that they can't open their vision to throw a good pass. I was already good at that. So some of it is natural talent, but the more you practice, the more it broadens. And Musashi says you have to broaden it. And he gives a technique for that later in the book that I will cover. He continues, do not think dishonestly. The way is in training. so important. But he states that before. You have to train, you have to train. The way he phrases it here, for me, is part of the genius of Musashi. He can tell you the same thing, and he's going to open a new door of comprehension with the way he phrases it, with his syntax. That's why I say that this translation is extremely good, because I think it captures the spirit of Musashi really well. Do not think dishonestly. The way is in training. He opens with that statement of do not be dishonest, and he moves on to training. Why? Because a lot of people delude themselves. They lie to themselves. They sort of convince themselves that training is not that important. And in the realm of fitness, it's people who will tell you that, oh, if you don't take drugs, then you cannot accomplish anything. Or, oh, your genetics are bad, so you cannot accomplish anything. Musashi says, this is dishonest. You are lying to yourself. He would have told that to a warrior back in the days, who told him, oh, but I cannot be the best at sword fencing because I wasn't born with the ability, I have a frail body. Musashi would tell him, you are dishonest. You do not believe that the way is in training, and therefore it isn't. Because if you go into this thinking, oh, I'm training right now, but it doesn't do anything, you're not going to push yourself, so yes, it's not going to do anything. It's a self-defeating prophecy. Train hard, train consistently, and let the way find you. If you don't have faith in yourself to find the way, let it find you. Just train like a robot, and eventually it's going to bloom in your mind. And if you're like me and you make very slow progress, it took me 10 years to get to where I am, but I'm still going because the way is in training. There is no higher truth than this statement. He says, become acquainted with every art. Agree and disagree. Because in the realm of what I do, it would mean becoming acquainted with powerlifting, strongman, etc., which I am to an extent. I've been following powerlifting for a long time, same for strongman, because even though I do not possess the natural ability or the passion for it, I respect strength to a great extent. So I'm acquainted with it. And the thing too is that I can learn from these guys. Even if they're not part of the bodybuilding community, they are moving their bodies through space, and I can learn from that. I can get info from that. And I think we're going to end here. No, we're going to finish this chapter, I think. Yes, we're going to finish this chapter. He continues, distinguish between gain and loss in worldly matters. Very important. This is something I try to do on this channel. There is such a thing as trying to put notions on paper to the point where you intellectualize them so much that they become abstract. But I do think that there is a way, a concise way, to just present your ideas to make them accessible for people. And being obscure is not a good thing. If I make a video about, in the hypertrophy series, about a concept of hypertrophy and no one gets it, it doesn't mean that I'm somehow a tortured genius who no one's get. It means that I'm a bad teacher. People who have very high skill caps in certain domains should be able to teach it. Because if your own thoughts are abstract to yourself and you can't present them to others, unless there is a language barrier, it means that you might not be at 100% on your own ability to understand the topic. There might be some exceptions to that, but for that it means that if I tell you about a method, a program, a lift, whatever, I'm going to tell you exactly what is good and what is bad for it, using my words. Perceive those things which cannot be seen. Pay attention even to trifles. Do nothing which is of no use. I'm going to stick with the last two. Pay attention even to trifles. Why do we have to pay attention to things that should be benign and not necessarily worthy to pay attention to? Because they add up. If you look at your program or at your training and you have 3 or 4 small things, as time goes by, these things repeat themselves and they accumulate, and eventually they become something that should have been resolved early on because its gains are already on the table. Do nothing which is of no use. I sort of disagree with that. I like to have projects Not everything I do is for hypertrophy. I do certain things because they're fun, or because I have another mean for them, or because I just want to be the best at them or master them, like finger push-ups. Finger push-ups are not going to make me bigger, but they're fun. But you should reduce that to a minimum. If you want to master something, you're going to have to do everything in your power to get good at that thing. If you let your attention be diverted too much, eventually it's going to come and bite you in the butt because you wasted energy on things that were not useful. So this was the ground book. We're done with the ground book, and we're going to attack the water book potentially in 2 weeks or 3. Thank you for watching. Read the book if you haven't read the book yet. Have a good day.